Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Hey there.
So today we are tackling a figure who, I think, for a very specific generation, is just completely frozen in amber.
Oh, totally. You say the name and a whole aesthetic just floods your brain.
Right. You close your eyes and you think, what, 2003?
2003, yeah. It's oversized sunglasses, it's trucker hats.
Von Dutch,
Yeah.
for sure. And maybe a little bit of trouble.
A little bit. And you think sidekick.
You definitely think sidekick. We're talking about Nicole Richie. And look, if you sort of checked out of pop culture around 2007, you probably still have that exact image locked in your mind.
Mm-hmm. The party girl. The other one in the picture next to Paris Hilton.
But that's the thing. If you actually look at the real trajectory, the data, the business moves, the critical reception later on, her story is arguably one of the most successful and fascinating pivots in modern Hollywood.
It's an incredible case study in taking control of your own narrative. I mean, we're looking at someone who's so easily dismissed.
Just a socialite sidekick.
Exactly. And she navigated these huge public legal struggles, intense media scrutiny about her health, and somehow came out the other side, not just as a survivor, but as a legitimate comedic powerhouse.
And a fashion mogul. We have to talk about the money. A very serious bottom line.
A very serious business.
And that is really our mission for today. We want to unpack how that actually happened. We've got a huge stack of sources here, a really comprehensive biography, financial reports on her fashion lines, which are fascinating, court records, reviews of her acting.
All of it.
And we want to dissect the actual moves, both business and personal, that allowed her to outlast that really toxic mid-2000s tabloid culture that just chewed up and spat out so many of her peers.
It really did. It's a survival story for sure, but it's also a business case study. And to understand it, you have to start at the very beginning. Because that name, Richie, it's a brand, right? It opens doors.
Well, absolutely.
But it's not her biological root. It's not where she came from.
Right. I think so many people just assume she was born in a mansion, daughter of Lionel Richie, and lived this life of just uninterrupted luxury from day one.
And that just wasn't it.
Not at all. Like, the real origin story is so much more complex. And frankly, it's rooted in a lot of instability, especially financial instability.
It is. She was born in Nicole Camille Escovedo.
Escovedo.
On September 21st, 1981. And, you know, if you're a music fan, especially of a certain era, that last name, Escovedo, that should ring a bell.
It sounds like percussion. It sounds like rhythm. It sounds like Prince.
Precisely. You're right on the money. Her biological father is Peter Michael Escovedo, who's a percussionist, and his sister is Sheila E.
Wait, Sheila E. as in The Glamorous Life. Sheila E. Prince's drummer and collaborator?
The very same. The one and only. So biologically, Nicole Richie is the niece of Sheila E.
Wow.
Music is literally in her DNA from day one. Her biological mother was a woman named Karen Moss, who was actually an assistant to Sheila E. at the time.
So she's born into the orbit of the music industry, but maybe not the financial stratosphere of it.
That is the perfect way to put it. She's in the ecosystem, but not at the top of the food chain. And this is the crucial context. When Nicole was about 3 years old, her biological parents were really struggling.
In what way?
The sources are pretty clear that they just couldn't afford to provide for her properly. There was a lot of financial instability, and their relationship was apparently very tumultuous. It just wasn't a stable environment for a toddler.
And this is where Lionel Richie comes into the story.
This is where he enters, and it really does play out like something you'd see in a movie.
How so?
Well, Lionel Richie and his first wife, Brenda Harvey Richie, they were friends of the family. They were in that same music circle. They saw what was happening. They saw this little girl in a very unstable home, and they had the means to help.
So they just made an offer.
They made an offer. They offered to take Nicole in to be her guardians.
So it wasn't an adoption right away. It was more of a, hey, let us help out for a bit.
Exactly. Initially, it was framed as a temporary thing, you know, a way to give her some stability while Peter and Karen got back on their feet. It was a completely informal guardianship.
But temporary things have a way of becoming permanent.
They do. As time went on, that arrangement it solidified. Lionel and Brenda fell completely in love with her. She, for all intents and purposes, became their daughter long before it was legal.
And they did legally adopt her eventually.
Yes, but not until she was 9 years old. So for 6 years, she was in this sort of in-between space.
And you have to look at the emotional backdrop of that household she was entering. Because on the one hand, she's gaining this incredible financial security. This is the mid-'80s. Lionel Richie is one of the biggest stars on the planet.
And a global superstar, dancing on the ceiling, say you, say me. He was everywhere.
But at the same time, that domestic situation, his own marriage, was completely fracturing.
Right. It was anything but stable. He famously wrote the song Ballerina Girl for her.
That was about Nicole.
It was. That 1986 hit is directly about her. And it paints this, idyllic picture of this perfect father-daughter bond. But what was happening behind the scenes was that Lionel and Brenda were going through a really bitter, really public divorce.
I remember that being all over the tabloids.
It was nasty. There were allegations of infidelity. There was that famous incident where Brenda was arrested for assaulting Lionel and his mistress. It was complete chaos for a child to be in the middle of.
And Lionel himself has been really candid in later years about how that whole situation affected his parenting.
He has, and this is so key to understanding the teenage Nicole Richie that the world would eventually meet. Lionel has admitted in multiple interviews that he was incredibly indulgent.
Why? What was the thinking there?
Guilt. He felt an immense amount of guilt. He felt that this little girl had already lost her biological parents, in a sense, and now her adoptive parents were splitting up in this horrible public way. So his strategy was just to say yes to everything.
To avoid conflict.
To avoid being the bad guy. To make her happy. It's the Disney dad syndrome, but you're giving him a superstar's budget and access. It's a really dangerous combination.
Absolutely.
In a Vanity Fair piece, Nicole even talked about this. She said their way of making her happy was just to give her total freedom. And Lionel admitted, I don't think a little girl should have that much freedom, but he was trying to compensate for the family breaking apart.
So there was no discipline.
Essentially no boundaries, because he didn't want to be the one to impose them on a kid who'd already been through so much.
And then you look at the circle she's in. I mean, her godparents aren't just, the neighbors down the street.
No. Her godparents are Michael Jackson and Nancy Davis.
Wow.
She is growing up at the absolute apex of music and Hollywood royalty. Quincy Jones is quoted in People magazine saying he's known her since she was a baby, and she was always a very smart girl. She's hanging out around Prince, around Kenny Rogers.
So this level of extreme fame is just normal to her.
It's completely normalized. It's the water she swims in. So let's recap. You've got a child who is dealing with, on some level, abandonment issues from her biological parents.
Right.
Then the trauma of a very public, nasty divorce between her adoptive parents. You add unlimited freedom, an almost unlimited budget, and you place it all within this bubble of Hollywood where the normal rules of society just don't apply.
It's a recipe for a very, very complicated adolescence.
It's a recipe for a rebellion. I mean, it's almost inevitable. When you don't have any boundaries, you're going to push and push until you find one.
So let's track her education for a second, because this part's really interesting. It presents this kind of what-if scenario.
Yeah.
She goes to Montclair College Preparatory School. She graduates in 1999. And then she heads off to college.
She goes to the University of Arizona.
Right, to study arts and media.
Yeah.
And this is the part that feels like a glitch in the matrix. The class roster at the University of Arizona at that specific moment is just a bizarre intersection of future pop culture timelines.
It's amazing.
Who else was there with her?
She was attending classes alongside Kourtney Kardashian and Luke Walton, the future NBA player.
That is an incredible mental image. Nicole Richie, Kourtney Kardashian, and Luke Walton sitting in a media studies lecture in Tucson, Arizona.
It just highlights how small that circle of wealthy California kids really is. They all end up in the same orbits.
But here's the what if. Unlike Kourtney, who actually finished her degree, Nicole didn't stick it out.
No, she dropped out after 2 years. She moved back to L.A.
Did she have a plan? A career path in mind?
Not really. Nothing definitive. It was more just the vague ambition of someone who's grown up around the spotlight and is used to it, but hasn't really found her own reason to be in it yet.
She was just floating.
She was floating. And that aimlessness, that lack of direction, is essentially what leads us straight to 2003.
The year that changed everything for her. The year of the simple life.
The reality TV explosion. And you have to put yourself back in that moment. In 2003, reality TV was still kind of in its infancy.
Right. We had Survivor and American Idol, which were huge.
Huge, but they were competition shows. The celebrity reality genre, what we think of now, wasn't fully formed. The Osbournes had kicked it off, but The Simple Life took it in a totally different direction.
How so?
It wasn't just about observing celebrities in their natural habitat. It was about taking them out of it. It was putting them in a situation that was specifically designed for them to fail.
So for anyone listening who wasn't glued to their TV back in 2003, just set the scene. What was the premise of this show?
The pitch was, I mean, it's so high concept, but so simple. You take two incredibly wealthy, famous for being famous socialites, Paris Hilton and her best friend, Nicole Richie.
And you strip them of everything.
Everything. Their credit cards, their cell phones, their Blackberries, their limos. You take it all away and you drop them in the middle of rural America and make them get jobs.
Specifically, Altus, Arkansas, population like 800.
Right. They moved in with a family, the leading family, and they had to work. They worked at a dairy farm. They worked at a fast food joint, a livestock auction.
It's the ultimate fish out of water comedy trope. It's basically Green Acres for the MTV generation.
It is. And it premiered on December 2003 on Fox.
And how did it do? Was it a hit?
It was a monster. It was a juggernaut. The premiere got 13 million viewers.
13 million.
13 million. For context, in today's fragmented TV landscape, 13 million viewers is like a hit NFL game or the finale of a massive HBO show. It was appointment television. It massively boosted Fox's ratings in that key 18 to 49 demographic.
So why did it work so well? Was it just people tuning in to see rich girls suffer?
Well, that was definitely the initial hook. There's a Schadenfreude element to it, for sure. You know, we want to see privileged people get a little uncomfortable.
Right.
But what kept people watching week after week was the chemistry between Paris and Nicole.
It felt genuine.
It did. And they had these brilliant on-screen personas. Paris played the, quote, dumb blonde character, which we now know was a very calculated, almost brilliant performance art piece. But Nicole was the comic relief. She was the one with the sarcastic one-liners, the deadpan delivery. She was just genuinely gut-bustingly funny.
I still remember that scene at the Sonic Drive-In. They're supposed to be working, and she's just causing absolute chaos.
Yes. She gets on the big sign out front and changes the letters to say, half-price, anal, salty wiener burgers.
It's so juvenile, but her delivery was just fearless. She had no shame.
None. She wasn't afraid to look ridiculous or be the butt of the joke, whereas Paris was always kind of maintaining the pose, the brand. Nicole was the chaotic, unpredictable energy that made the show so addictive.
They were legitimately best friends, and you could feel that connection. It carried the show.
Yeah.
But it didn't last.
No, it really didn't. The show was a huge hit for 3 seasons on Fox, and then the fracture happened.
The feud.
The feud. In April 2005, reports start leaking out that they weren't speaking anymore, and the tabloids went into an absolute frenzy over it. The feud became a bigger story than the show itself.
And Paris gave that iconic, devastatingly vague quote.
The ultimate shutdown. Nicole knows what she did, and that's all I'm ever going to say about it.
Which is just masterful. It's like vague booking before Facebook even existed.
Yeah.
Do we actually know what it was, what she did?
To this day, it's never been publicly confirmed by either of them. The rumor that got the most traction was that Nicole had shown a private sex tape of Paris's to a group of people at a party.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. There were other rumors about jealousy over media attention, that Nicole was getting funnier reviews, but nothing was ever substantiated. The only thing that mattered, though, was the business consequence.
Which was?
Fox canceled the show. They canceled a hit show because their two leads literally could not be in the same room together.
That's almost unheard of in TV history, to just walk away from those kinds of ratings because the stars hate each other.
It really speaks to how volatile and real that fallout was, but the brand of the show was just too strong to die.
Right. E! Entertainment Television saw an opportunity.
They did. They picked it up for a 4th season. But now they had this massive production problem. How do you make a show about two best friends when they won't speak?
So they had to get creative. This is the camp counselor season.
Right. They came up with this format where they were basically running different aspects of a camp. The production had to film them almost entirely separately and then try to edit it together to make it seem cohesive.
It was so awkward to watch.
It was incredibly awkward if you knew the backstory. It felt disjointed. It just didn't have that same magic.
They did eventually reconcile in October 2006. But by the time they got to the 5th season, the whole tone of the show and their lives had shifted. It wasn't just about silly antics anymore. Real life was crashing in hard.
This brings us to the turbulence part of her story. And yes, season 5 was incredibly difficult to produce, not because of a feud this time, but because both stars were now facing very serious, very public DUI charges.
The party was catching up to them. The legal system was finally catching up with the lifestyle.
In a big way.
Let's unpack that legal history for Nicole, because she had been kind of skirting the edge for a while, even before the show.
She had. As early as October 2002, before The Simple Life even aired, she was arrested after a brawl in a New York City nightclub. Those charges ended up being dropped. but it established a pattern of public volatility.
And then came the 2003 arrest.
Yes, in Malibu. And this one was a huge red flag. This wasn't just a nightclub fight.
What were the specific charges on that one?
Driving with a revoked license and possession of heroin.
Heroin. I mean, that stops you in your tracks. When you think of party girls from that era, you think of alcohol, maybe cocaine. Heroin implies a much, much deeper level of struggle.
It really does. It speaks to the severity of her addiction issues at that point. This wasn't just partying anymore. This was serious self-medication. She did check herself into rehab right after that arrest and was sentenced to 3 years probation.
But she was still functioning, still filming the show.
Yes. But the incident that really blew everything up, the one that truly dominated the headlines and made filming The Simple Life almost impossible, was the one in December 2006.
This is the famous wrong way on the freeway incident.
That's the one. The California Highway Patrol starts getting calls from panicked motorists. They're reporting that a black Mercedes-Benz G-Class, that huge, boxy, unmistakable SUV.
A tank, basically.
A tank. It was entering State Route 134 on an exit ramp and was driving against the flow of traffic.
Driving the wrong way on a freeway. It is an absolute miracle that no one was killed.
A miracle. That is a terrifying scenario for everyone else on that road. When the police finally stopped her, she admitted to them that she had used marijuana and taken Vicodin. She failed the field sobriety test spectacularly.
This wasn't a case of I had 2 glasses of wine with dinner. This was being severely impaired behind the wheel of a massive vehicle.
Absolutely. And this, of course, leads to the jail sentence. I remember this being such a huge media moment. The mugshot was everywhere. Paris Hilton had just done her time for a similar offense.
It was the story of that summer.
It was. Nicole was sentenced to 4 days in jail. But this is where the strange reality of the Los Angeles County justice system at the time collides with celebrity.
Right. She checked into the Century Regional Detention Center in Linwood on August 23, 2007. And how long did she actually serve?
She was there for a grand total of 82 minutes.
82 minutes. That's not even enough time to get processed properly.
Barely. A spokeswoman for the sheriff's department came out and confirmed it was due to chronic overcrowding in the jail system. The policy at the time for nonviolent offenders with sentences under 30 days was, in many cases, immediate processing and release.
So they could make room for more serious criminals.
Exactly. So she essentially checked in, got the mugshot taken, and checked right back out.
But the public perception was not great. People were outraged. It looked like celebrity special treatment.
It absolutely looked that way, and it was a huge controversy. The sheriff's department was adamant that this was just standard operating procedure for that facility at that time, but it didn't look good.
Did she have other consequences?
She did. She had to enroll in an 18-month anti-drinking driver education program. And it's worth noting, her probation was actually extended at one point because she missed a class. So it wasn't a clean break. She was clearly struggling to maintain compliance with the court's orders.
And happening at the exact same time as all this legal drama, there was this other equally intense scrutiny on her physical health.
Visibly so. I mean, if you just look at photos from season 1 of The Simple Life, where she looks like a healthy, average young woman, and compare them to photos from 2006, the weight loss was just drastic.
She was skeletal.
She was. And the tabloids were absolutely ruthless. Every single cover was screaming anorexia, bulimia. It was a national obsession.
It was that really toxic era of the lollipop head celebrity.
Yeah.
Right? The super, super skinny bodies with the big sunglasses and the big head. It was a terrible time for body image in the culture.
It was awful.
What did Nicole herself say about it at the time? Did she address it?
She did. She gave a big interview to Vanity Fair. She flat out denied having a specific eating disorder, saying, "I am not anorexic, I am not bulimic." But she was self-aware enough to admit, "I know I'm too thin right now."
So she acknowledged there was a problem.
Yes. She said she was working with a nutritionist and a doctor because she was scared for herself. She recognized that something was wrong, even if she wouldn't put the label on it that the press was using.
And she did end up being hospitalized.
She was. In March of 2007. The official reason given was dehydration and hypoglycemia. It was just a really, really precarious time for her. You've got the active legal issues, the substance use admissions, the extreme physical frailty. I mean, honestly, when you look at the trajectory of so many other celebrities, particularly from that era, the 27 Club.
Right, this is usually the point where the story ends in tragedy.
This is the spiral. We saw it with Amy Winehouse, with Brittany Murphy. The spiral almost always goes down, not up.
But this is where the Nicole Richie story completely deviates from that script.
Okay.
This is the pivot.
This is where she takes the wheel.
Section 4. building a business empire. And this part is so fascinating because she didn't just, slap her name on a bottle of perfume in a lazy way. She actually created a whole aesthetic. She built something real that outlasted all the scandal.
And it started in a surprising place. It started with books, oddly enough.
Really? I forgot about the books.
In 2005, right in the middle of all the chaos, she released a novel called The Truth About Diamonds. And it's a semi-autobiographical novel.
Semi is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence, I imagine.
A tremendous amount of heavy lifting. The main character is named Chloe Parker. She's the adopted daughter of a world-famous singer, and she's navigating Hollywood nightclubs and drug addiction and bad relationships.
So it's her life story with the names changed.
It is basically her life story with a very thin veil of fiction thrown over it. But you know what? It worked. It peaked at number 32 on the New York Times hardcover fiction bestseller list.
That's not bad at all.
It's not. It proved she had a voice and that people were interested in her story, even in fictionalized form. She followed it up with a second novel, Priceless, in 2010. But the books were really just the appetizer.
The main course was fashion.
The real money, and I think the real respect, came from fashion.
Absolutely. This wasn't just merchandise. She launched House of Harlow 1960 in 2008.
And it was named after her daughter, Harlow.
Right. It started as a jewelry line. And if you can remember 2008 fashion, that whole boho chic look.
Oh, I remember it well.
The headbands worn across the forehead, the giant sunburst pendants, the stacks and stacks of bangles. Nicole Richie was arguably the primary global driver of that entire trend.
She was both the muse and the maker. She took that vintage, 60s and 70s Stevie Nicks-inspired look, and she commercialized it perfectly for the moment. It wasn't just that she wore it well, she made it accessible for everyone else to buy.
She basically invented the Coachella aesthetic before Coachella became the massive influencer event that it is today.
She really did. And the line expanded very quickly. By 2010, she was adding apparel and shoes. Then she launched a second line, Winter Kate, a clothing line also named for her daughter's middle names.
And that one focused more on those flowy, timeless pieces.
Exactly. The paisley prints, the silk slip dresses, the florals. It was a very distinct, cohesive brand vision.
So let's talk numbers. Because being a celebrity designer is often just a vanity project that loses money. Was this actually successful as a business?
It was wildly successful. There was a big report in The Hollywood Reporter in May of 2012 that estimated that her two lines, House of Harlow and Winter Kate, had generated combined sales of $55 million.
$55 million. That is a serious business. That is not a hobby.
It's serious volume, but, and this is a really important but, we need to explain the economics of these celebrity brands because that big headline number can be a little misleading about her personal take-home pay.
Okay, how so?
The same report suggested that even with those massive sales figures, Richie herself was probably only receiving about 5% of the revenues as her cut.
Wait, only 5%? So if the lines make $55 million, she's taking home, what, just under $3 million? That seems incredibly low for a company that has her name on it.
It highlights the reality of most of these deals, which are licensing deals. In this kind of model, the celebrity, they provide the creative vision, the final approval, and most importantly, the marketing face. They wear the clothes.
They're the living advertisement.
Exactly. But a larger parent company, usually a big manufacturing conglomerate, they're the ones handling the hard stuff. The sourcing of the fabric, the factory contracts in China or India, the shipping logistics to get it into department stores, and crucially, they take on the inventory risk.
So if a whole season of dresses doesn't sell, the parent company takes the financial hit, not Nicole Richie.
Precisely. It's a much lower risk model for the celebrity. They aren't putting up millions of dollars in capital for factories and materials. They just take a royalty cut right off the top.
So it caps her potential upside. She's not making the insane margins that someone like, say, Kylie Jenner makes by owning her whole supply chain, but it also completely protects her downside.
Yes. And look, an extra $3 million a year in relatively passive income from a licensing deal is nothing to sneeze at. It gave her real financial independence, separate from her father and separate from reality TV paychecks.
And more than the money, it bought her credibility.
It really did. In 2010, she won Entrepreneur of the Year at the Glamour Women of the Year Awards. That suggests the fashion industry was taking her seriously. She proved she had an actual point of view. She wasn't just Paris Hilton's friend anymore. She was a genuine tastemaker.
And she built on that. She did a maternity line with Pea in the Pod, a line from Macy's Impulse collection, and later she became a brand ambassador for Urban Decay makeup.
She built a real diversified business.
So she conquers the fashion world. She establishes her own financial independence. But then She decides to conquer something else entirely, comedy. And this, for me, is the most delightful and surprising turn in her entire career.
The comedic renaissance, it's my favorite part of her story. And I think it really stems from her ability to be self-deprecating. She understood, I think, that if she laughed at herself first, the tabloids couldn't really hurt her anymore.
She started doing acting guest spots, right? I remember being so surprised seeing her pop up on the show, Chuck.
Yes, she had a recurring role on the spy comedy Chuck, and she was playing a villain, which was fun. She played Heather Chandler, the main character's high school nemesis. She also did spots on 8 Simple Rules, even 6 Feet Under.
But she really found her own comedic voice with Candidly Nicole.
I loved that show, and the origin of it is so modern. It started from her Twitter feed.
It did.
Which is just a testament to how good her writing is. You have to give her so much credit for her use of social media. In the early 2010s, when most celebrities were using Twitter for, like, bland PR announcements.
Check out my new movie.
Right. Nicole was using it to drop these incredibly dry, absurd, hilarious observations about her life, and the network VH1 saw that and had the smart idea to turn it into a show.
But it wasn't a trashy reality show like The Simple Life. It was almost like a version of Curb Your Enthusiasm starring Nicole Richie.
That's a great comparison. It was that highly produced, heavily scripted style of reality that borders on being a sitcom. It ran from 2014 to 2015, and it was all built around her art of honesty. She would just say the things that everyone else was thinking but was too polite to actually say out loud.
And it proved she had great comedic timing.
She did. But the real breakthrough, the moment where the serious acting world had to nod and give her respect, was the sitcom Great News.
Okay, this is significant.
Yeah.
Because Great News was produced by Tina Fey.
Tina Fey. And we need to understand the comedy hierarchy here. Tina Fey is absolute royalty. She's SNL, she's 30 Rock, she's Mean Girls. She does not cast people just for the stunt value of having a celebrity on her show.
If Tina Fey anoints you as funny, then you are legally funny. The debate is over.
The debate is over. And Richie was cast as Portia Scott Griffith, this hip, sometimes clueless, but very manipulative news anchor. And Tina Fey publicly endorsed her, saying that Richie has an instant likability and good timing without really pushing it.
That's the key to her comedy, I think. She doesn't push it. She knows how to underplay a joke and let the line do the work.
Exactly. And the critics agreed. Reviews in Variety and The Washington Post specifically praised her performance. They highlighted her deadpan delivery of these killer one-liners. She wasn't just a funny celebrity guest star. She was a competent comedic actress holding her own in an ensemble cast full of legends like Andrea Martin.
And then we get to the weirdest and maybe most brilliant project of all. We have to talk about Nikki Frey.
Nikki Frey.
This was for that streaming platform Quibi. R.I.P. Quibi.
Gone, but not forgotten.
But the concept was just beautifully insane.
It was. This was in 2020. She creates this complete alter ego, Nikki Frey, who is a trap icon and a wellness guru who raps exclusively about organic vegetables, bees, and saving the environment.
She released a whole comedy rap album called Unearthed.
With songs like Bee's Tea and the Gem song.
It's so absurd.
It is. But it's also brilliant because it brings together all the different parts of her persona. The environmentalist, the musician. And we forget she's a trained musician. She can play cello, piano, violin, and the comedian. It was this perfect satire of the Goop-style wellness industry, but it was being performed by someone who is deeply embedded in that same LA wellness world. It's meta commentary.
It's very smart. And she's also done the reality judging circuit. Right?
She was a judge on Fashion Star with Jessica Simpson and more recently on Making the Cut with Heidi Klum and Tim Gunn.
And, of course, the big reunion, the 2024 announcement of Paris and Nicole, the encore. It just brings the entire narrative full circle, showing that they've reconciled and can now monetize their friendship in a healthy, adult way instead of a destructive, chaotic one.
Right.
So, okay, we've established she's a mogul and she's a comedian, but we have to look at the stability in her personal life. Because when you consider where she was in 2006, facing jail time, a health crisis, addiction, her family life today seems incredibly grounded.
It really does seem to be the anchor that made all the rest possible. After a brief engagement to DJ AM, Adam Goldstein, who passed away so tragically a few years later, she started dating Joel Madden.
From the band Good Charlotte.
That's right. They got together in December of 2006.
The pop-punk connection. I remember the time it seemed like such an odd pairing. The LA socialite and the tattooed rock guy from Maryland.
It did seem strange from the outside, but it obviously worked. They have been an incredibly solid, low-key couple ever since. They have two children, a daughter, Harlow, born in 2008, and a son, Sparrow, born in 2009. And they got married in 2010.
There's a really interesting stat about their daughter's birth that brings us right back to the business of fame.
Yes. The very first photos of their daughter Harlow were sold exclusively to People magazine for a reported $1 million.
$1 million?
Yeah.
I was wondering where that money actually goes in these situations. Is it just, profit for them?
Well, in many celebrity cases, and certainly in this one with Richie and Madden, there's a heavy emphasis on funneling that kind of media windfall directly into philanthropy. In 2007, they founded the Richie Madden Children's Foundation.
And what kind of work does that foundation do? Is it just a name on a letterhead, or is it active?
No, it seems to be quite active and focused on tangible results. They launched a program called Cup with a Cause for 7-Eleven to raise money, but they've also done really serious work with UNICEF.
Like what?
After the devastating cyclone in Myanmar, they didn't just tweet their thoughts and prayers. They shot PSAs and actively raised funds for relief. They held a fundraiser for UNICEF's TAP project that raised over $100,000, which was used to buy 143 water points for villages that didn't have access to clean water.
So that's real tangible aid. You can say 143 villages now have water because of that. That's a real impact.
It's a real impact. And she's become very involved in environmental issues. She's a board member of the Environmental Media Association, which has a program to put organic gardens in schools. And she's a frequent host for Baby to Baby, which is a huge LA charity that provides essentials like diapers and clothing to children living in poverty.
It's just a complete 180-degree turn from the tabloid narrative of her in her early 20s.
It really is. She went from being the poster child for the wasteful, out-of-touch celebrity to being this very focused advocate for children and the environment.
So, okay, let's try to bring this all together. We've traced this arc from, the adopted daughter of a music legend who felt abandoned to a reality TV wild child.
From a jail cell and rehab.
To a fashion mogul with $55 million in sales. And then finally to this respected comedic actress and dedicated philanthropist. What is the grand synthesis here? What's the key takeaway from her journey?
I think the key takeaway for me is the concept of narrative control. For the entire first part of her life, things basically happened to Nicole Richie. She was adopted, she was thrust into the spotlight, she was the sidekick on a show that was edited to make her look like a messy party girl.
She wasn't in the driver's seat.
Not at all. But at a certain point, and I think it was right around that 2007-2008 mark, right after the jail incident, and right as she became a mother, she grabbed the wheel.
She stopped letting the tabloids and the TV producers tell her story for her.
Exactly. She took the platform that reality TV had given her, which was massive global fame, but she pivoted into legitimate business ventures that she controlled. She didn't just stay a reality star. She used that notoriety as a launchpad for a real business.
And then she used the financial security from that business to go and pursue the creative work she actually wanted to do, like comedy, on her own terms.
It's the ultimate lemons into lemonade story. But instead of lemonade, it's a global fashion line and a Tina Fey-produced sitcom.
Pretty good trade. She proved that your 20s don't have to be a life sentence. You can be a mess and still become a mogul. She just completely outlived the caricature of herself.
She did.
So I want to leave our listener with a final thought here. We talked about that interesting financial disparity in her fashion lines. The brand selling $55 million, but her taking a 5% cut. And we talk about how masterfully she used media. When you look at how she used Twitter so early on to completely reshape her public perception from messy to witty, and how she was monetizing her personal style and lifestyle years before Instagram even existed.
It raises a much bigger question about the history of the internet age, doesn't it?
It does. To what extent did Nicole Richie basically write the playbook for the entire modern influencer economy? Before that term even existed, she monetized the lifestyle aesthetic, she pivoted from scandal to brand safety, and she used social media to bypass the gatekeepers and speak directly to her audience.
She might just be the architect of the modern celebrity career arc. Every single influencer launching a tequila brand or a makeup line today is in some way walking down a path that she paved back in 2008.
It's something to think about next time you see a celebrity launching a lifestyle brand. They're all just walking in Nicole Richie's House of Harlow shoes. Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.